Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellowcat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet, and let's get started. Employees, how did you fire your bosses? Part 3. I was an NOC tech / CSR at the American branch of a smallish Korean tech company. As part of a team of 8 people, I oversaw services, made sure everything was up and running, and answered customer questions. Our old manager was offered a great new job somewhere else, so he quit. A few weeks later, the company hired a new NOC manager. When this guy started working for us, he did a lot of stupid things. It was clear that he wanted to manage a much bigger team, so he did things like dividing us into multiple tiers, telling each tier exactly what tasks they could and should do, and changing our coverage schedule all the time. The last one really annoyed me because I liked working the night shift and was told, no, you're too knowledgeable, you're tier 3, you have to be in the mornings, only tier 1 works the night shift. He also got one team member to quit and almost got a second one to quit too because he sucked them up every time they tried to learn anything about our systems. Upper management didn't care because the NOC had been the company's scapegoat for years. Whenever a customer ended their service, no matter what the reason was, their account manager would say it was because the NOC wasn't providing enough support. One of the previous NOC managers made it a rule to do customer satisfaction surveys after every support issue was fixed. This was done to show that the account managers were lying, which everyone already knew, but it was helpful to have proof. The database for that system was open to me because I helped him set it up. Took me a few months to realize that A, the new manager wasn't going to realize how stupid he was, and B, I could show him how stupid he was. So I took some time one day to write some scripts that made a bunch of nice reports about our ticket queue and the results of our customer satisfaction survey. Graphing showed that the CSAT scores dropped a lot right after the new manager started enforcing all of his rules and the average time it took to solve a ticket 5 times. Hey, this is probably a sign that you should rethink some of this stuff, I told him. He threatened to fire me for wasting the company time, I told him. Then I told a coworker who wanted to be NOC manager that I had these reports. He took them, gave them to our director, and spent a few days in a bunch of meetings. The next Monday, he was in charge at the team meeting as NOC manager. Basically, he changed all of the manager's rules and gave me the job of setting up my reports to be sent to him and everything above the director's level automatically every week. I was also given the night shift lead position. By the following week, average resolution times were back to where they were before the stupid policies. Within a month, our average CSAT score went back to normal, and within 2 months, the account manager's lies about everything being caused by the NOC finally stopped because every manager was given proof that they were lying. In the past, I went to medic school and worked full-time as an ambulance driver for the same company that ran the vet school. The woman, Dee, who ran the medic program, also worked for the ambulance company. She was famous for being able to sleep her way to the top of the program while being terrible at her actual job. They had me, and if I was fired, I would be kicked out of the program. If I failed the program, I would lose my job. I worked really hard and didn't get much sleep. I did my best, even though it was hard work and not getting much sleep. Dee called me into her office one day to sign some papers. I asked her if she needed anything else as I was leaving, and she joked that she might ask me to write an essay for her online business class. It was a joke, but I replied, well, I was an English major. She told me to shut the door. To make a long story short, she forced me to take a few full online classes in her name. While I was in medical school and working as an ambulance driver, I would write papers and tests for her. She even pulled me off the road a few times so she could give me timed tests. I would find cash in my locker at work and feel guilty about taking it because I was afraid of losing my job and spotting the program if I didn't. Never told anyone about it. She got all A's. My life was terrible. She even tried to kick me out of the program for lack of academic integrity when I recorded some hours wrong while taking on new medic hours on the ambulance. I was tired and added 1 hour to a shift by accident. After many years, I went on my first date with a firefighter I knew from when I was a medic. I had kept D and my plan a secret from everyone. I told him the truth after a glass of wine, and his face lit up. "Was that you?" The company fired her because they saw that she was buying things from her home with her work card. When they looked through her computer, they saw that she was using a medical student to do most of her degree work online. Somehow, everyone found out, but no one thought it was me. They all know now that I told the firefighter, and I don't care. Due karma has never made me feel so good. Because he owned the business, it didn't get my boss fired. I did, however, cheat him out of a big deal. Just so you know, this guy was a total jerk. He sucked up to his customers, so you can only imagine how he treated his workers. We fixed things like hydraulic cylinders, pumps, and parts that were made just for the job at this shop. I drove this guy's truck, and I was the only one in the shop with a license to do so. The owner didn't even have one. I got so sick of this jerk in the end that I decided to quit. But I waited until it was the right time to do it. My ex-boss was in talks with a steel company about getting a job to fix all of their hydraulics. If he got the job, he would have made millions of dollars over 10 years. Remember that this guy was the very definition of a D-head. On my last day, I had to make an emergency delivery to that steel mill, which was important for the contract. After loading the truck, I went back to work, clocked out, and left for home. My old boss called and complained about why I wasn't there. I told him I quit because I was sick of being treated like an effing abused dog and slave. I also told him good luck trying to get a CDL driver in the next hour and to F off because I quit. He quickly changes his mind because he knows he can't lose this big contract and is now at my mercy. He must have been in a panic because he offered a raise, which is crazy for him because he never does that. After about a week, I ran into a coworker from that hydraulic shop who had also quit for the same reasons. Someone I worked with before told me that my jerk of a boss went crazy the whole day I quit because he lost the big contract. An old coworker also said that 2 more guys quit that week and the old boss didn't understand why no one was staying. My ex-coworker and I laughed and joked, and we both agreed that the ex-boss would never understand that no one would want to work for such a jerk. Residents of a terrible HOA or those who have terrible neighbors, share your stories, Part 3. My wife and I were in a condo with a porch outside that was made of wooden beams and walls. Because the neighbor above had watered her plants for years, many of the beams were rotting. The water had soaked into the wood and made it sponge-like. It was very clear from the HOA rules that I couldn't replace the wood or do anything else. We asked for months for the porch to be fixed, but we were ignored. We were lucky enough to be able to rent out our condo while we moved into our new home. At this point, the porch structures were not stable and could move around a lot. Our homeowners association, HOA, had a lot of small complaints about things like our grill being visible from the porch. I went to my first HOA meeting with a small grudge and a highlighted copy of the bylaws in my hand. 2 of the 3 board members I saw at the meeting were reasonable, but one, whom I call Mr. Rule Guy, never met a rule he didn't like. Some of the tenants were told off for small offenses, and then the floor was open for tenant items. It was polite of me to show them pictures of the rotting wood and exposed nails. Mr. Rule Guy said, "We know that there are a lot of porches that need repairs, and we will get to yours when your turn comes up." He was also rude about it. At that point, I read in the bylaws that the HOA is responsible for all porch repairs. Also, since we were about to rent our apartment to a family, I had to give the HOA all responsibility for any injuries that the potential tenants, including children, might have. The reasonable woman who is in charge of the HOA board said, "Well, we'll put your unit at the top of the list and it should be fixed in a couple of weeks." Mr. Rule Guy sat there stone-faced. Mic drop, thank you for your attention. I moved into the condo that the wife owned at the time we got married. I have a lot of stories about the bad people who worked there, but the one with the front screen door is my favorite. The screen door broke. The front doors that came with these units weren't normal doors. The handle was built into the door so it couldn't be changed. The door would only open 1 out of every 4 or 5 times he tried to use the handle. We had to do something about it. We quickly learned that the door had to be replaced as a whole because it wasn't built in a standard way with a handle mechanism that could be changed. The rules of association said that we could only get a door of the same make and model. What was wrong was that this unit was built in 1996. The business that made the door closed in 2004, and this took place in 2013. We could take the door off, but not put a new one on. No matter how much they looked like the old one, we couldn't get a new one from a different company. It was important to us to keep the screen door on because they're so helpful in the winter to keep out the cold air and snow. In the summer, they can help you get some fresh air. I spot welded the plunger thing on the side of the door down in the end, which made the door just swing open and shut. After that, I added a sliding latch to the door to make sure it stayed shut. The rules in this place are terrible, so bad that they can't even update them in a reasonable way. For the rules to be changed, 51% of the owners must vote in favor at a meeting. After a few weeks of living in my new home, I found out that our HOA had been suspended by the state for years because they hadn't filed their taxes. The seller knew this, but they didn't say anything. The HOA changed management companies right before the sale. This meant that their old bank account had to be closed so that the money could be moved to a new account with a new management. But because the new management wasn't recognized by the state, they couldn't open the new account. It was the same time as trying to open a bank account without any ID. We couldn't deposit our money because it was stuck in the form of a check. Members of the HOA had nowhere to send their monthly dues because of this. Also, there was no bank account to use to pay bills. The board spent months wasting time and holding meetings that didn't lead to anything useful. We got here because of carelessness on the part of the old management company, but they wouldn't talk to us in any way. The new management company said they would take care of all the paperwork to fix the issue, but when I checked, I saw they hadn't done anything. And the bills that were due late started to come in. Finally, a notice was put up on our building telling us how many days we had until the water would be cut off and the building would be condemned. I was sick of this crap. I did a lot of research and made a plan. This took up almost all of my free time at home and during lunch at work. For us, I hired a lawyer to set up a trust that will hold our dues checks and pay our bills. We could pay the bills and late fees now that we had money coming in again. The board agreed with me that the new management should be fired. They sent us a bill every month even though they knew we couldn't pay it because they weren't doing anything for us. After getting a rude call from the management company's CEO, I wrote the firing letter, which was then sent by the board. After that, I looked into the state's business and tax laws. It was taught to me how to do a corporate revival, in this case HOAs or corporations. After getting the missing tax records, I had to file for reinstatement with the state tax board. By law, it takes the tax board 3 months to send back a response with their decision. After that, the state has up to 3 months to do something. Our lawyer sent a legal letter to our old management, but they didn't answer, asking for all of our financial records. They quickly sent back some of the worst kept records I could have imagined, which looked like they came from a Word document. But it had just the right amount of information for me to fill in the tax forms for the years I was missing. We sent off the tax forms and began the long wait for the tax board to decide whether we were in good standing again. In the meantime, I put together a list of suggestions for new management firms. 3 were chosen by the board, and we talked to them at our annual meeting. I called the tax board every day after 3 months of not hearing from them. Most of the time, no one could tell us what was going on with our request. I finally found out that no one had even looked at our paperwork yet. Luckily, my last call was to the only person there who listened to my story and promised to speed up our paperwork. We were back on good terms with the tax board after a week. Then I turned in the paperwork for the business revival. The state finally recognized our HOA again after about a month and a few phone calls. We hired our new management, they promptly opened an account and transferred the funds from the trust, and things have finally been getting back to some semblance of normalcy. And I was immediately elected HOA treasurer. If you want to watch the part 2, click the link here. Very, very glad to see you all in the comments again. Many thanks for support.